India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has set the record straight on India's position when it comes to few critical issues involving US's involvement in India and Pakistan dynamics. And criticism over India's energy ties with Russia, among other issues on which Jaishankar has spoken. He did not mince words as Jaishankar addressed the widely discussed role of the United States in the 4-day cross-border conflict between India and Pakistan, which eventually led to a ceasefire. Notably, the ceasefire was officially brokered after a telephonic exchange between the Director General of Military Operations of the two countries. However, prior to any formal announcement from either India or Pakistan, US President Donald Trump publicly claimed credit for facilitating the pause in hostilities. Now, Jaishankar now acknowledging that phone calls were indeed made by the US and other countries clearly pointed out that such communications are not secret and they do not amount to negotiating in an outcome.
It is a fact that at that time phone calls were made, phone calls were made by the US, phone calls were made by other countries as well. This is not a secret. At least in my case, almost every phone call I had, definitely every American phone call I had, is there on my X account. So when something like this happens, countries do call up. After all, don't I call up? When Israel-Iran was happening, I called up. When Russia-Ukraine was happening, I called up. So it's in today's international relations, because it is an interdependent world and countries feel, okay, something is happening somewhere, I should know, and particularly, I would say, those who have a stronger history of international relations will do that. But, that is one thing. It is something quite different to assert mediation or to assert that an outcome which was negotiated between India and Pakistan was not negotiated between India and Pakistan. It was.
And further touching upon the complex US-Pakistan relationship, as Jaishankar remarked that Washington has often adopted a selective approach, ignoring Pakistan's past actions for present-day geopolitical expediency.
They have a history with each other, and they have a history of overlooking their history. So what happens is it's not the first time we have seen things. And the interesting thing is when you look sometimes at the certificates, say somebody in the military will give, it's the same military which went into Abbottabad and found who there. So the issue in a way is when countries are very focused on doing politics of convenience, they keep trying to do this, and some of it can be tactical, some of it can have some other benefits or calculations. But again, look at obviously, I respond to the situation or the challenge of the day, but I also do so always keeping in mind the larger structural sort of strengths of the relationship, the confidence that comes from it. So I take it in that spirit, I know finally what I'm about. I know what are my strengths. I know what are the importance and the relevance of my relationship. So that's what guides me.
And now the US President also emphasized the public nature of Trump's diplomacy. In fact, EAM, the External Affairs Minister, emphasized the public nature of Trump's diplomacy, saying that we have not had a US President who conducted foreign policy as publicly as the current one.
I think we've not had a US president who's conducted foreign policy as publicly as the current one. That itself is a departure. That's not limited to India. That's limited. In fact, for that matter, who's not conducted his domestic policies as publicly as this one too. So I think we got to understand, before I come to India-US, that the President Trump's way of dealing with the world, even dealing with his own country, is a very major departure from the traditional orthodox manner of doing so.
And also responding to increasing criticism from the West regarding India's continued oil trade with Russia, the minister was unequivocal as Jaishankar defended India's energy policy, highlighting that purchase of Russian crude served both national and global interest by contributing to market stability. Further, he stressed that India would not be pressured into compromising its energy security or strategic autonomy.
Second issue, in a way, is being presented as an oil issue. But why I say is being presented is because the same arguments which have been used to target India have not been applied to the largest oil importer, which is China, has not been applied to the largest LNG importer, which is the European Union. When people say we are funding the war or putting money in the coffers of Putin, India-European Union trade is bigger than India-Russia trade. So is American money not, European money not putting money into Putin's coffers? So, and if you look even at trade, look at countries
You say they are getting more from Europe than from us? Is that the point?
The overall Russia-EU trade is bigger than Russia-India trade. So my point is, look, if the argument is energy, there are bigger buyers. If the argument is who's trading more, there are bigger traders. If the argument is, by the way, percentage of increase, okay? Now, yes, some countries haven't increased the percentage because they've gone and bought oil from Iran, okay? To which also the Americans have objections. So my point, look, there is a certain inconsistency here. And if you look even at exports, I mean, India's exports to Russia have grown, but not that much. I can think of some other countries whose exports have grown dramatically after 2022. And if our exports have suddenly surged, you know what that means.
And on China, the External Affairs Minister underlined that peace and stability along the border remains a prerequisite for normal relations, adding that India's concern with Beijing dates back to 1950s, including the trade imbalance and the recent Galwan Valley clash.
We have problems which go back to the 1950s, which is, for example, the boundary question, okay? So, because other things happen, that has not gone away. In fact, that is very much still at the center stage, and it is in fact the maintenance of the peace and tranquility in the border areas that is a prerequisite for development of the relationship. So you have, I would say, a 50s, 60s, 70s, almost, I would say 60 years, 70 years of, 80 years now of that problem. Then we have an issue which started in the early 2000s after China entered the WTO, which is the beginning of a trade deficit, and it rapidly became a concern. It didn't become a concern in 2025 or 24 or after 2014. I was ambassador in China from 2009 to 13, and I can tell you the growing trade deficit was an increasing concern for us.
The External Affairs Minister called out what he described as hypocrisy from Western nations. On India's larger geopolitical outlook, he stated clearly that New Delhi's decisions are based on national interests, whether in trade, agriculture or energy policy. So External Affairs Minister setting the record straight there on numerous geopolitical talking points in the country, starting from trade with Russia, relations with China and US President Donald Trump's foreign policy. Well, joining me on the show right now is Ambassador Deepak Vora, former Indian diplomat. Also with me is Major General Rajan Kochar. He's a defense and strategy expert. On the phone line is my colleague Pragya Bakshi. Pragya, let's set the record straight for the External Affairs Minister speaking about a lot of important issues there, but highlighting more importantly Western hypocrisy when it comes to trade with Russia and geopolitical interests.
Shweta, essentially the External Affairs Minister has schooled the West on how business is to be done. Because we mean business as a country is, the essence of his statements at this media summit. He, in fact, also, detailed that by sharing the approach of the government, which is to diversify, which is to not depend on single markets, to also, do more hedging and to make at home, that is made in India. So he's basically given a reality check to the West at large, the EU and America. He has said that it is Russia and Europe that do more trade than Russia and India. And a lot of these points he has touched upon, and basically to say that, we know what the ground realities are. You know that we know what the ground realities are. And, because that does not explain why the West should behave the way that it is behaving, pressurizing India with tariffs and whatnot. And that is the essence of his message. On the China issue also, it's interesting. He's maintained such a, no-nonsense approach, excuse my French, but he's basically, although we've had this reset that we are talking about, especially in the media, that we are really reading into it and trying to read between the lines, but he still maintains that there are still issues. You cannot just take, initial baby steps at this reset at such face value that you jump the gun. And so there are still very many issues to be resolved with China. So, these are some really important points coming in from Jaishankar, and that just shows that the country's stand and approach is, completely professional. We mean business, and that's that. Thanks, Shweta.
All right, let me quickly get in. Ambassador Deepak Vora and Major General Rajan Kochhar have been patiently waiting. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I think it's important, as far as clarity coming from what India wants and what it demands of its neighbors, including its foreign policy clarity. Ambassador Deepak Vora, coming to you first. I think this was much needed, a clarity by the way of what we want, and we simply want business. We want to do business and we want to do what's in the best interest of our country, which if it requires having trade relations with Russia, then we'll do it, and also trying to call out the hypocrisy of the Western nations there.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Always a pleasure to be with you. Can you hear me?
I can, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure. You are brilliant. So is your channel. I'm right now in a wonderful, wonderful place called Leh in Ladakh. We are having a global peace conference. One of the issues discussed today was the Ukraine-Russia conflict, and everybody agreed that the people who are keeping that conflict going are the Western nations and the United States. Now, it's very interesting. Dr. S. Jaishankar, who was with me in the Foreign Service, a few years junior, but is quadrillion times more intelligent, has made it very clear. Now, nobody could put it better, that some countries suffer from what I would call selective Alzheimer's disease. And the challenge of history is, or the lesson of history is, that there is no lesson of history. Ma'am, in the 1980s, we used to buy, I'm old enough to remember, I was in the service, then posted in that region. We used to buy oil from Iran. We used to buy oil from a character called Saddam Hussein of Iraq. So would we be accused of funding Saddam Hussein's invasion of Iran when everybody, even the Americans, saying, sweetheart, go ahead and beat up the Iranians because the Ayatollahs have taken over and they've booted out the Shah, etc.? We were not accused of that. We also bought oil from Iran. This nonsense about this character called Peter and something or the Navarro, that, we are funding the Russian war machine. Well, shall I buy the oil from the United States, give it to me at the same price? I'll buy as much as you want from you, but then you should not accuse me of funding the American war machine somewhere else where you're going to fight. No, this is arrant nonsense. I don't think Shri Navarro or Shri Trump even believes. Shri Trump, of course, believes, as you very rightly pointed out, in explomacy. He does everything on X. He believes in X administration. His administration, he does it on X. So we don't want to take issue about it. We don't want to get into a slanging match. We don't want to score brownie points. The fact is we are doing what is in our national interest. We are doing, as far as oil is concerned, in the international interest also, because we stabilized oil prices. The American consumer would have been badly hit if we had not bought Russian oil. Prices would have shot up, ma'am. And as far as the phone calls are concerned, let me tell you, I know, ma'am, at least one Middle Eastern country and 2 European countries did call I've done it all the time. We do it either through their ambassadors in Delhi. Let's assume I was posted somewhere, there's an Indian community there and there's an Indian community in the adversary. I was asked, go tell both the president, guys, lay off and protect our community. Or we'll call their ambassadors in Delhi, say lay off. Or my minister will call if it's serious enough. There's a ladder of escalation, so to speak. We do it all the time. So if these guys have called us and said, Tiger, please don't do it. Well, thank you very much. We've listened to what you had to say. We'll take it. None of them, I repeat, ma'am, none of them said, don't do it or I'll sanction you or I'll do this, that or the other. They know that this is no longer indecisive India. This is Bharat Bahadur. We'll do what is in our national interest.
We will do what is in our interest, and we'll do it without any pressure. I think Major General Rajan Kochhar, that's the message coming in from External Affairs Minister, also pointing out, as to why a trade deal perhaps could not be reached. And he also briefly mentioned that we'll also have to ensure that our farmers' interests are taken care of, essentially alluding to the fact that that's perhaps one of the reasons why there was no interim trade deal with the US, because they wanted an open access to Indian market, Indian agri market, dairy market, and India was not okay with it.
Shweta, you're absolutely right. See, every country has to look at its own national interest. And our interest is our agriculture, our farmers, and the people of India. And under no circumstances we are going to come under pressure from the US or any other country to start listening to what they want us to do. We've always maintained a uniform foreign policy and a uniform policy on trade. So I don't think India is going to be pressurized, because right now what Trump is trying to do is he's trying to behave like a bully. He's trying to pressurize us. First he says 25%, then he says another 25%, and tomorrow, Shweta, it may be another 50%, because this guy is not going to stop at this. So I think External Affairs Minister Jaishankar has made it loud and clear in absolutely uncertain terms that we are not going to buckle down under any amount of US pressure, and come what may. And I think that's a very, very right stand. What America is going to lose will be tremendous, because India has been a very great friend of America. And in the last 20 years, I can say the kind of comprehensive strategic partnerships and agreements which the United States and India have agreed with each other, he is trying to set back this relationship by another 10 years. Because the damage he would have done to this relationship in the coming 3.5 years he has, I think it will become very, very difficult to repair the damage. And ultimately, I think his own people have started speaking against him. I think a recent survey in America, his popularity is going down by the day. So I think better he realizes for him, it is good. I think today's news is that his head of intelligence also he has sacked. So he's got a habit of being very, very impulsive, and the people around him are all yes men, because they are only trying to speak the language he likes to hear. And that is unfortunate, because in governance and in foreign affairs, you can't have your golfing partner going around making deals with Gaza and Vietnam and Ukraine. You have to have trained diplomats doing the job. Ambassador Deepak Vora is there. I think he will agree with me, because diplomats have a role to play in governance.
100%. I'm not sure if he trusts his own diplomats very much, come to think of it, given that John Bolton is also now under scanner. Ambassador Vora, External Affairs Minister is also pointing out that we've never seen a president who's conducted foreign policy as publicly as Donald Trump. In your assessment, your experience, have you seen any precedent, any leader of the free world conducting foreign policy like Donald Trump?
I can't match General Kochhar's eloquence, but yes, I've never seen anybody do this. And this is explomacy. It's not diplomacy what he's doing. And it's not administration. It's exministration that he's doing. He does it all publicly. He thinks that's a great thing. No, man. There are many things that should be done with discretion. He doesn't understand the word discretion. And as General pointed out, he sacked his Defense Intelligence Agency chief. I think the Defense Secretary has sacked him. Then they've raided John Bolton, who used to be former National Security Advisor. I really don't understand what's going on. Yes, he is doing it because he wants to satisfy his constituency. He's still fixated on that MAGA nonsense, make America great again. I don't know how long it will last. As General pointed out, his popularity is plummeting. People are not very pleased with him. And ma'am, the final thing, if he does push up the tariffs, the sanctions against India and puts heavy customs duties, it's the American consumer who's going to pay higher prices in the time to come. And that they don't like. Prices are already going up, by the way. It's going to hurt them very, very badly. I know because I have family living there. They say, we just can't manage anymore because that's impacting our salaries, our spending power, whatever. He's only worried about his golfing partners and the super rich in America. He doesn't care about the middle America, the people who actually built America.
And it does look like, Ambassador, that people are going to see it through very quickly if they're not already seeing it through. But as Major General pointed out, that his popularity is waning right now. And if a constitution of the US is to go by, I don't think there's going to be a third term. There's no third term for a US president. Before I close the show, I also have to bring our viewers back to what External Affairs Minister said vis-a-vis Major General relationship with China. Now, he said that there have been concerns with Beijing dating back to 1950, including trade imbalance, Galwan Valley clash. But would it be fair to say that India-China relations are writing a new chapter?
Shweta, I think turnaround is taking place because both the countries realize, because China has also been subjected to the kind of bullying from America. And the last BRICS summit was a turning point. They talked about de-dollarization. They talked about bringing a new currency. So I think the world is planning a reset as far as monetary transactions are concerned. And India and China, let me tell you, in case these two countries you improve their relations, there'll be a tremendous challenge to America in times to come. And America always wanted China, always wanted India to counterbalance China. That is not happening because India also realizes that China is a neighbor, and with any neighbor you would like to have good relations. But at the same time, I would like to caution here because Chinese have to be, the words of the Chinese have to be taken, not verbatim. You cannot trust them at this stage because now they are talking of a new agreement. All earlier agreements which we have had with them in 90s and 2003 and 2005, peace and tranquility, confidence building, and these boundary issues, China is wanting to start a new kind of a chapter as far as boundary issues are concerned. And this is one area I think, Shweta, India has to be very, very careful because trade is okay. We can increase the trade, and we must also insist China buys more from us because the trade imbalance is tremendous. But once these supply chain issues get sorted out with China, especially you mentioned the magnets, what the External Affairs Minister actually mentioned, the magnets and the fertilizers and the pharmaceuticals. I think China and India resetting the relation is good for both the countries, and especially bringing peace into the subcontinent. And Shweta, please don't forget, China assisted Pakistan during Operation Sindoor.
Right.
And in case there is an Operation Sindoor 2.0, do we expect China to not help Pakistan? That'll be a larger question I would like to leave with the audience.
Right. And before I close the show, Ambassador Vora, we were looking at shifting geopolitical sands in South Asia, and I think everybody can see it with their naked eyes, with the way India is approaching China, cautiously optimistic about what relations will have going forward. The engagement between Russia and India is also something to look forward to. In your understanding, geopolitically, are we likely to be headed to become better partners with Russia and China if hostility from the US continues?
There is no question about it. Our relationship with Russia stands on its own. America has nothing to do with it. Donald Trump can go to the moon. We won't change our relationship with Russia. As far as China is concerned, this is Robert Merton's law of unintended consequences. He's pushing us, he's pushing China. Both have decided, let's come together. But ma'am, let me put it to you very bluntly. I've been in diplomacy 52 years and counting. I'm 74 years young, very good looking. And it's, if there is no trust, there is no relationship. We don't trust China, period. You never know when they'll make up with America and start messing around with us again. And as far as this thing about China buying more for us, forget about it. China has so much of excess capacity that they're going to dump it in their domestic market. What will he buy from us? The same things that he makes, why would he buy from us? He would rather use his own excess capacity to satisfy his domestic demand, but his people are not buying. He's losing his export markets. So he's going to look inward. No, I don't think this is going to happen. This is a marriage, if I may say so, at the moment, because of the nonsense that this Padri, Donald Trump, is doing. This is a marriage of inconvenience between India and China. How long it lasts, I don't know. Dr. Jaishankar has been ambassador there. He's been foreign secretary, now the minister. He is a past master in this. I would trust him totally. I would not trust that other fellow, Ping Pong or whatever his name is. No, man. The relationship with China is transactional for the moment.
100%. Ambassador Vora, Major General Rajan Kochhar, I've completely run out of time, gentlemen. Thank you very much for taking time out for joining us on this very crucial story.